The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maya Rodriguez scanned another box of cereal, the familiar beep echoing through the nearly empty checkout lane. At 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, Walmart was experiencing its usual lull. A handful of shoppers wandering the aisles, mostly retirees and stay-at-home parents. Maya had been working this register for 3 years, and she knew the rhythm by heart. "A paper or plastic?" she asked the elderly woman in front of her, forcing a smile despite the ache in her lower back from standing for 6 hours straight. "Plastic, dear. Thank you." Maya bagged the groceries mechanically, her mind already drifting to her evening plan. Community college classes started at 7, and she still needed to grab dinner and review her notes for the economics exam. The routine was exhausting, but it was her ticket out of this small Pennsylvania town. The automatic doors whooshed open, and Maya glanced up to see a man in his 50s striding through the entrance. Even in civilian clothes, khaki pants and a navy polo shirt, he carried himself with unmistakable military bearing. His silver hair was precisely cut, his shoulders squared, and his eyes swept the store with the calculated awareness of someone accustomed to assessing threats. General Thomas Morrison had retired from active duty 2 years ago, but old habits died hard. He'd stopped by to grab supplies for his lake house, hoping to enjoy a quiet weekend away from the phone calls and meetings that still dominated his consulting work. The transition from commanding thousands of soldiers to civilian life had been harder than he'd expected. Maya finished with the elderly customer and began reorganizing her station. The general approached her lane, pushing a cart with basic supplies, batteries, rope, a few canned goods. Nothing unusual except for the way he moved with calculated precision, as if every step had been planned 3 moves ahead. "Good afternoon," Maya said, starting to scan his items. "Did you find everything you needed?" "Yes, thank you." His voice carried the crisp authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. Maya reached for a pack of batteries, and as she stretched across the scanner, her sleeve rode up slightly. The movement exposed a small portion of her left forearm, revealing the edge of what appeared to be a tattoo, geometric lines forming part of a complex pattern. General Morrison's hand froze halfway to his wallet. His eyes locked onto the visible portion of the tattoo, and the color drained from his face. Those weren't random geometric lines. They were part of a classified symbol he'd seen only twice in his 30-year career, both times in briefings so highly classified that fewer than 20 people in the world knew of their existence. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "I need to ask you about your tattoo." Maya's head snapped up, her hand instinctively moving to cover her forearm. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your tattoo, the one on your arm. Where did you get it?" The question hit Maya like a physical blow. She'd spent 3 years carefully keeping that tattoo hidden, positioning her sleeves, choosing her clothes, even avoiding certain activities that might expose it. Only one person had ever seen it complete, and he'd been dead for 4 years. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but her eyes betrayed her. Morrison had interrogated enough people to recognize the look of someone caught off guard. The geometric pattern, the interlocking circles with the star configuration." Morrison's voice grew more urgent. "That's not a random design. That's a classified military symbol." Maya's heart pounded so hard she was certain other customers could hear it. The store suddenly felt too small, too bright, too exposed. She looked around frantically, but the nearest employee was 3 lanes away, and no other customers were in sight. "Sir, I think you're mistaken," she said, but her voice cracked. "It's just a tattoo I got when I was younger, nothing special." Morrison leaned forward, his training kicking in. "Miss, I need you to understand something. The symbol you're wearing is part of Operation Nightfall. It's a classified program that officially doesn't exist. The only people who would have access to that design are individuals with top-secret clearance and need-to-know access." "I don't know what you're talking about," Maya repeated, but she was backing away from the register now, her hands shaking. "Your name," Morrison demanded. "I need your name." Maya's nameplate read, Maya R. But she'd always been careful about her full identity. Still, something in Morrison's tone, not threatening, but desperately urgent, made her hesitate. "Dims Maya Rodriguez," she whispered. Morrison's eyes widened. "Rodriguez? Are you related to Captain Sofia Rodriguez?" The question hit Maya like a lightning bolt. She hadn't heard her sister's name spoken aloud in years. The grief, carefully buried under layers of routine and survival, came rushing back with devastating force. "How do you know that name?" she whispered. "Because Captain Sofia Rodriguez was part of my unit. She died 4 years ago in Afghanistan, officially in a training accident." Morrison's voice grew gentler, but more intense. "But what really happened was classified at the highest levels. And if you have that tattoo, if you're her sister, then you're in more danger than you can possibly imagine." Maya's legs nearly gave out. The store around her seemed to spin, the fluorescent lights too bright, the sound of shopping carts and distant conversations fading into white noise. Sofia had been her everything, older sister, protector, role model. She'd joined the army to pay for college, promising Maya she'd come back and help her do the same. "Sofia never told me about any operation," Maya said, her voice barely audible. She said she was doing important work, that she couldn't talk about it." "She gave you that tattoo, didn't she?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer. Maya nodded, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Right before her last deployment. She said it was our secret, our connection. She said no matter what happened, I should never show it to anyone." Morrison felt his blood run cold. If Sofia had given her sister that tattoo, it meant she'd broken protocol in a way that could have gotten her court-martialed. But more importantly, it meant Maya was now carrying around evidence of one of the most classified operations in military history. "Miss Rodriguez," he said, his voice urgent but controlled, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. You cannot go home tonight. You cannot follow your normal routine. There are people who would kill to get their hands on information about Operation Nightfall, and if they've been watching, if they've figured out who you are—" "You're scaring me," Maya whispered. "Good. You should be scared." Morrison glanced around the store, his training automatically cataloguing exits and potential threats. "Because right now, you're the only living person outside of the highest levels of government who carries physical evidence of an operation that officially never happened. And there are people who will stop at nothing to make sure it stays that way." Maya's mind raced, trying to process the impossible situation. An hour ago, she'd been worried about her economics exam. Now, a retired general was telling her that her sister's death might not have been an accident, and that her own life was in danger. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice breaking. Morrison made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "You come with me, right now, and you tell me everything Sofia told you about that tattoo and what it means." As Maya looked into his eyes, she saw not just authority, but genuine concern. For the first time in 4 years, someone else knew about Sofia's secret. Someone who might finally have answers about what really happened to her sister. Word count, 1289. Maya's hands shook as she untied her Walmart apron, her mind spinning with questions and fears. Morrison waited silently, his eyes constantly scanning the store for any sign of unusual activity. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows seemed different now, not warm and comforting, but exposing and dangerous. "I need to tell my supervisor," Maya said, her voice barely steady. "No." Morrison's tone was firm but not harsh. "The fewer people who know about this conversation, the better. Call in sick tomorrow. Tell them you have a family emergency." Maya's stomach lurched. "This is insane. I'm a cashier. I go to community college. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment and eat ramen noodles for dinner. I'm nobody special." "Your sister thought otherwise," Morrison replied. "And Sofia Rodriguez was one of the most skilled intelligence officers I've ever worked with. She wouldn't have given you that tattoo without a very good reason." They walked toward the exit, Maya's legs feeling unsteady. Morrison's truck was parked in the lot, a black Ford F-150 that somehow managed to look both ordinary and intimidating. As they approached it, Maya noticed how Morrison's eyes never stopped moving, constantly checking mirrors, angles, potential threats. "Get in," he said, opening the passenger door. "We need to talk somewhere private." The drive to Morrison's temporary residence took 15 minutes through the Pennsylvania countryside. Maya sat in silence, staring at her covered forearm, trying to remember every detail of that night 4 years ago, when Sofia had carefully drawn the intricate design with a tattoo gun she'd somehow acquired. "She was so careful," Maya said suddenly. "Sofia, I mean. She made me promise never to show it to anyone. She said it was sacred, that it represented something bigger than both of us." Morrison's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "What else did she tell you?" "That she was part of something important, something that could change everything." Maya's voice grew quieter. "She said if anything ever happened to her, I should remember that she died for something that mattered." Morrison pulled into the driveway of a modest 2-story house overlooking a small lake. The property was secluded, surrounded by trees, with clear sightlines in all directions. Even in retirement, he'd chosen a location that could be defended. Inside, Morrison led Maya to a small office lined with military memorabilia and photographs. He pulled out a secure phone and made a quick call. "It's Morrison. I need a secure line to Washington. Priority Alpha." He paused, listening. "Yes, I understand it's been 2 years since I retired. This is about Nightfall." Maya watched as Morrison's expression grew more serious during the brief conversation. When he hung up, he turned to her with grim determination. "Maya, I need you to show me the complete tattoo. I know it's personal, but I need to understand what Sofia gave you." With trembling hands, Maya rolled up her sleeve, revealing the full design for the first time in years. The tattoo was incredibly intricate, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as the light hit them from different angles. At the center was a star configuration surrounded by interlocking circles, but the overall design was far more complex than Morrison had initially realized. Morrison stared at the tattoo, his face pale. "Jesus Christ, Sofia, what did you do?" "What is it?" Maya asked, fear creeping into her voice. "This isn't just a symbol," Morrison said, grabbing a magnifying glass from his desk. "Look at these lines, these angles. Sofia encoded something into this design. She turned your arm into a living piece of classified intelligence." Maya felt the world tilt around her. "Encoded what?" Morrison studied the tattoo more carefully, his military training in cryptography coming back to him. "The geometric patterns. They're not random. They're coordinates, grid references. And these interlocking circles." He paused, his breath catching. "They're facility layouts. Blueprint fragments. Facilities for what?" Operation Nightfall was a Black Ops program designed to infiltrate and neutralize terrorist cells that had acquired weapons of mass destruction. Sofia was part of a team that discovered something big, a network of facilities, locations, key personnel, information that could prevent catastrophic attacks. Maya's mind raced. "But why put it on me? Why not just report it through official channels?" Morrison's expression darkened. "Because Operation Nightfall was compromised. Someone on the inside was feeding information to the enemy. Sofia must have realized that traditional reporting channels weren't safe, so she encoded the critical intelligence into something that could never be lost or destroyed, a tattoo on her sister's arm." "But she died in a training accident," Maya protested. "There are no accidents in Black Ops," Morrison replied grimly. "Or if Sofia discovered who the mole was, if she tried to expose the traitor, that would explain why she ended up dead." Maya felt sick. "You're saying Sofia was murdered?" "I'm saying Sofia was eliminated by someone who knew she was getting too close to the truth." Morrison began pacing, his mind working through the implications. "And if they killed her, they've probably been looking for what she hid. They just didn't know where to look." Suddenly, Morrison's secure phone rang. He answered immediately. "Morrison." His face grew grave as he listened. "When? Are you certain?" A long pause. "Understood, we're moving now." He hung up and turned to Maya with urgent intensity. We need to leave, now. What's wrong? 3 hours ago, someone accessed personnel files related to Operation Nightfall. They were specifically looking for information about surviving family members of deceased operatives. Morrison was already grabbing essential items from his desk. Maya, they know you exist. They know you're Sofia's sister, and they're coming. Maya's heart pounded. How is that possible? Because you showing up at that Walmart, me recognizing that tattoo, our conversation, it triggered security protocols. Someone's been monitoring for exactly this scenario. Morrison handed her a weapon. Do you know how to use this? Maya stared at the pistol. I've never held a gun in my life. Then you're about to learn. Morrison's voice was grim but determined. Because the people who killed your sister are already on their way here, and they're not interested in taking prisoners. Outside, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the trees. Morrison moved to the window, peering through the blinds. 3 black SUVs were advancing up the driveway, their occupants visible through tinted windows. Back door, Morrison ordered. Now. As they moved toward the rear of the house, Maya caught a glimpse of the approaching vehicles. Men in tactical gear were emerging, weapons drawn, moving with professional precision. These weren't random criminals or opportunists. They were highly trained operatives. Who are they? Maya whispered. The same people who killed Sofia, Morrison replied, checking his sidearm. And they're here to finish what they started. Morrison led Maya through the back door toward the tree line. Behind them, the sound of splintering wood indicated their pursuers had reached the house. They had perhaps 2 minutes before the property would be completely surrounded. There's a boat dock about half a mile through these woods, Morrison said, his voice low but urgent. If we can reach it, we have a chance. As they ran through the darkening forest, Maya felt the weight of the secret she'd carried for 4 years. Sofia's tattoo wasn't just a memorial, it was a weapon, a key to exposing a conspiracy that had already claimed her sister's life. Now that same conspiracy was coming for her. Word count, 1,297. The forest was alive with the sound of pursuit. Maya could hear branches breaking, voices calling out coordinates, and the distant bark of tracking dogs. Morrison moved through the trees with surprising agility for a man his age, his military training evident in every step. Maya struggled to keep up, her cashier's lifestyle having left her unprepared for this kind of physical demand. How much farther? She whispered, her lungs burning from the exertion. 1/4 mile, Morrison replied, pausing to check their back trail. But we have a problem. Through the trees, Maya could see lights moving in a coordinated pattern. Their pursuers had night vision equipment and were systematically sweeping the area. This wasn't a desperate chase. It was a professional manhunt. They're herding us, Morrison realized. They want us to reach the lake. It's a trap. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. Then what do we do? Morrison's mind raced through tactical options. His retirement had made him comfortable, perhaps too comfortable. He'd forgotten what it felt like to be hunted by professionals who wanted him dead. We go to ground, he decided. There's an old hunting blind about 200 yards north. If we can reach it, we can wait them out. They changed direction, moving carefully through the underbrush. Maya's civilian clothes were ill-suited for stealth, and every step seemed to announce their presence. Morrison had to admire her determination. Despite being terrified, she was following his lead without question. The hunting blind was exactly where Morrison remembered it, a weathered wooden structure partially concealed by overgrown vegetation. They slipped inside, just as the sounds of pursuit grew closer. "Turn off your phone," Morrison whispered. "And remove the battery if you can," Maya complied, her hands shaking as she dismantled her phone. The silence that followed was deafening. Through gaps in the blind's walls, they could see lights moving through the trees, hear voices coordinating the search. "Base, this is Alpha Team." A voice crackled through a radio somewhere nearby. No visual contact. Subjects may have reached the water. "Copy, Alpha Team. Bravo Team is positioning at the dock. If they're in the water, we'll have them." Morrison and Maya exchanged glances. Their pursuers were military or ex-military, using tactical communications and coordinated movements. This wasn't some hastily organized response. It was a professional operation that had been planned in advance. "How long have they been watching me?" Maya whispered. "Probably since Sofia died," Morrison replied quietly. "No, they've been waiting for you to reveal what you know, or for someone like me to recognize the significance of that tattoo." Maya looked down at her covered arm, the weight of Sofia's secret heavier than ever. "What exactly is encoded in this design?" Morrison pulled out a small LED flashlight and studied the tattoo more carefully. The coordinates appear to reference locations in 3 different countries. The facility layouts, they're too detailed to be random. Sofia must have had access to architectural plans, security protocols, maybe even personnel assignments. For what kind of facilities? Based on the geometric patterns, I'd say chemical weapons storage sites. The interlocking circles represent containment protocols, decontamination procedures. Morrison's voice grew grim. Sofia discovered where terrorist cells were storing weapons of mass destruction, and she encoded that information into your tattoo. Maya felt sick. "So everyone who wants this information will kill you to get it," Morrison finished. "The terrorists want to protect their weapons. The mole in our government wants to protect their identity. And our own people might decide you're too dangerous to leave alive." The sounds of the search were growing more distant, but Morrison knew better than to assume they were safe. Professional operators would establish a perimeter and wait. Time was on their side. "We need to contact someone we can trust," Maya said. "That's the problem," Morrison replied. "Sofia died because she couldn't trust anyone in official channels. The mole is still out there, still in a position of authority. If we reach out to the wrong person, then we end up like Sofia," Maya finished. Morrison nodded grimly. "But there is one person who might help us. Colonel Elizabeth Hayes. She was Sofia's commanding officer, and the only person who questioned the official story of her death. Where is she now? Pentagon, Deputy Director of Intelligence. If anyone can help us navigate this without getting killed, it's her." Maya considered their options. "But how do we contact her without exposing our location?" Morrison smiled grimly. "We don't. We make them come to us." He pulled out an encrypted communication device he'd kept from his active duty days. This will send a coded message that only Hayes will understand, but using it will also announce our position to anyone monitoring military communications. So we'll be surrounded within minutes," Maya said. "Exactly. But we'll also have the one person who can protect us on the way." Morrison began composing the message. The question is whether Hayes arrives before the kill team finds us." As Morrison sent the message, Maya thought about Sofia's final words to her. "Remember that I died for something that mattered." Now she was beginning to understand the weight of that statement. Sofia hadn't just died for her country. She'd died trying to prevent mass casualties from weapons of mass destruction. "Message sent," Morrison announced. "Hayes will receive it within minutes. If she's the person I think she is, she'll mobilize a response team immediately. And if she's not, then we're about to become very popular with people who want us dead." Outside the hunting blind, the forest had grown quiet, too quiet. Morrison recognized the tactical silence that preceded a coordinated assault. Their pursuers had found them. "They're moving into position," he whispered. "Get ready." Maya gripped the pistol Morrison had given her, though she still had no idea how to use it effectively. "What's the plan?" "We wait for Hayes, people to arrive, and hope they get here before the shooting starts." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the trees, amplified by a megaphone. "This is Colonel Elizabeth Hayes, U.S. Army Intelligence. You are surrounded by federal agents. Drop your weapons and surrender immediately." Morrison's eyes widened. Either Hayes got here impossibly fast, or someone's using her name to flush us out. "How do we know if it's really her?" Morrison thought for a moment, then called out, "What was Sofia Rodriguez's favorite movie?" A pause. Then, "The Princess Bride. She quoted it constantly and drove everyone crazy." Morrison relaxed slightly. "That's Hayes. Sofia was obsessed with that movie. They emerged from the hunting blind with their hands visible, Maya's heart pounding as she saw the ring of armed figures surrounding them. At the center stood a woman in her 40s, wearing military fatigues and carrying herself with unmistakable authority. "General Morrison," Colonel Hayes said, her voice tense. "We need to move. Now. The people hunting you aren't just mercenaries. They're rogue CIA operatives with authorization to use lethal force." "Authorization from whom?" Morrison asked. Hayes' expression was grim. "From someone high enough in the chain of command to make this whole thing disappear. Including us." Word count 1286. The safe house was a nondescript building in rural Virginia, the kind of place that existed in the shadows of government operations. Colonel Hayes had transported Maya and Morrison there in an armored convoy, but Maya could see the tension in everyone's faces. Even surrounded by federal agents, they weren't truly safe. Hayes led them into a secure conference room where a team of analysts was already assembled. Maya recognized the setup from movies: multiple computer screens, secure communication equipment, and personnel who looked like they hadn't slept in days. "Show me the tattoo," Hayes said without preamble. Maya hesitated. "I've spent 4 years hiding this. Now everyone wants to see it. Because your sister encoded intelligence that could prevent terrorist attacks killing thousands of people," Hayes replied. "And because the people who killed her are still out there, still working to suppress what she discovered." With reluctant resignation, Maya rolled up her sleeve. The room fell silent as the analysts studied the intricate design. Hayes pulled out a magnifying glass and examined the tattoo closely. "Jesus, Sofia," Hayes whispered. "You turned your sister into a walking classified document." "What exactly am I carrying?" Maya asked. Hayes looked up at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Locations and access codes for 3 terrorist weapon storage facilities, one in Syria, one in Somalia, and one in Pakistan. Each facility contains enough chemical weapons to kill hundreds of thousands of people." Maya felt the weight of the revelation. "And the mole?" "That's where it gets complicated," Hayes said. "Sofia discovered that someone in our government was selling information to these terrorist cells, not just low-level intelligence, but details about our counter-terrorism operations, the locations of our assets, the identities of our operatives." Morrison leaned forward. How high up does this go?" "High enough to order Sofia's elimination, high enough to authorize the kill team that's been hunting you." Hayes pulled up classified documents on one of the screens. Sofia was getting close to identifying the traitor. She'd narrowed it down to 3 suspects, all of whom had access to the relevant intelligence. "Who?" Maya asked. Hayes hesitated. "Deputy Director of the CIA Marcus Webb, National Security Advisor Catherine Mills, and Defense Secretary Robert Castellanos." Morrison felt the blood drain from his face. One of those 3 people is selling weapons intelligence to terrorists. And whichever one it is has been using their position to cover up Sofia's murder and hunt down the evidence she left behind. Hayes turned to Maya. "The coordinates encoded in your tattoo are useless without the access codes. Sofia must have hidden those somewhere else." Maya racked her brain, trying to remember every detail of her final conversations with Sofia. "She gave me other things: a necklace, some books, a photo album." "We need to examine everything," Hayes said. "But first, we need to figure out which of our 3 suspects is the traitor." One of the analysts called out from across the room. "Colonel, we've got a problem. Someone's been monitoring our communications. Whoever's behind this knows we have Maya." Hayes cursed under her breath. "How long do we have?" "Unknown, but they're mobilizing resources. We're seeing unusual activity at multiple military installations." Maya felt panic rising. "What does that mean?" "It means the mole is calling in favors, using official channels to track us down," Morrison explained. "They're going to claim we're terrorists or foreign agents. By the time anyone realizes the truth, we'll be dead." Hayes was already making decisions. "We need to split up. Morrison, take Maya and get those personal items Sofia gave her. I'll stay here and try to identify the mole." "That's suicide," Morrison protested. "If they find this location, Then I'll buy you time to expose the truth, Hayes replied. Sofia died for this intelligence. I'm not going to let her sacrifice be meaningless. Maya stood up, her mind racing. There might be another way. What if we force the mole to reveal themselves? How? Hayes asked. By making them think I'm about to expose everything. If they believe I'm going public with the intelligence, they'll have to stop me personally. Morrison shook his head. That's incredibly dangerous. You'd be painting a target on yourself. I already have a target on me, Maya replied. At least this way, we control the situation. Hayes considered the plan. It could work. But we'd need to make it convincing, and we'd need backup in place to protect you when the mole makes their move. I'll be the backup, Morrison said. If Maya's going to risk her life, I'm going to make sure she survives it. Hayes nodded. Then we need to move fast. I'll arrange for a public forum where Maya can threaten to reveal the intelligence. A press conference, maybe a television interview. Something high-profile enough that the mole can't ignore it. And when they try to stop me, we'll be ready, Morrison promised. But Maya, you need to understand, once we do this, there's no going back. You'll be forever connected to this intelligence. Your life will never be normal again. Maya thought about Sofia, about the sister who died trying to prevent mass casualties. My life stopped being normal the day Sofia died. At least now I can do something about it. Hayes began coordinating the operation. I'll arrange for a CNN interview in 2 hours. That should give the mole enough time to mobilize a response, but not enough time for them to plan something elaborate. What about the other personal items Sofia gave me? Maya asked. We'll retrieve them after we identify the mole, Hayes replied. Right now, your tattoo is enough to flush out our traitor. As the team prepared for the operation, Maya found herself thinking about Sofia's final words. Remember that I died for something that mattered. Now she understood that Sofia hadn't just died for her country. She died trying to save thousands of innocent lives. Morrison checked his weapons and communication equipment. Maya, when we get to that interview, you need to be convincing. The mole has to believe you're really going to expose everything. I am going to expose everything, Maya replied. Just not the way they expect. Hayes approached them with final instructions. The interview is set for 6 p.m. at CNN's Washington bureau. We'll have agents positioned throughout the building, but the mole will likely try to intercept you before you reach the studio. Let them try, Maya said, her fear replaced by determination. It's time to finish what Sofia started. As they prepared to leave the safe house, Maya touched the tattoo on her arm. Soon, the world would know the truth about Operation Nightfall, about Sofia's sacrifice, and about the conspiracy that had tried to bury both. The hunt was about to become a trap. Word count 1,189. The CNN building in Washington, D.C. was a fortress of glass and steel, its lobby buzzing with the controlled chaos of a major news organization. Maya stood in the elevator, her heart pounding as she watched the floor numbers climb toward the studio level. Morrison stood beside her, his eyes constantly scanning for threats, while Hayes coordinated security through an earpiece. Remember, Hayes whispered, you don't have to reveal the actual intelligence. Just make them think you're about to. Maya nodded, though her mouth felt dry. In 30 minutes, she'd be on live television, threatening to expose classified information that could prevent terrorist attacks. The weight of Sofia's sacrifice pressed down on her shoulders. The elevator stopped at the 20th floor, and they stepped into a corridor lined with television monitors showing various CNN programs. Maya could see her own face on one of the screens, a promotional announcement for the breaking news interview that would air in minutes. Maya Rodriguez, the Walmart cashier with explosive revelations about military cover-ups, the anchor announced. Don't miss this exclusive interview at 6 p.m. No pressure, Maya muttered. Morrison's earpiece crackled. We've got movement, Hayes reported. 3 black SUVs just pulled up outside the building. Military plates, but they're not our people. The mole's making their move, Morrison realized. They can't let Maya reach that studio. Through the corridor's windows, Maya could see the SUVs in the street below. Men in dark suits were emerging, moving with the coordinated precision she'd learned to recognize. These weren't random operatives. They were the same team that had hunted them through the Pennsylvania woods. "Elevator's been disabled," Hayes reported. "They're forcing everyone to use the stairs. Classic containment protocol." Maya felt trapped. 20 floors above street level, with professional killers controlling the building's exits. "What do? "We adapt," Morrison said grimly. "Hayes, can you get us to the studio through alternate routes?" "Working on it. But Maya, you need to understand, even if we reach the studio, they'll cut the broadcast. The mole has enough authority to shut down the interview. Then we need to force them to reveal themselves before the interview," Maya realized. "We need to make them come to us." Morrison's tactical mind was already working. "The building's security system. If we can access it, we can monitor their movements, maybe even trap them." Hayes' voice crackled through the earpiece. "There's a security office on the 15th floor. If you can reach it, you'll have access to the entire building's surveillance network." Maya and Morrison began moving toward the stairwell, but froze when they heard voices echoing from below. Their pursuers were already in the building, systematically clearing each floor. "Plan B," Morrison whispered. "We go up." They climbed to the roof access, Morrison picking the lock with tools he'd carried since his active duty days. The Washington skyline spread out before them, the city lights beginning to twinkle in the early evening darkness. "Helicopter pad," Morrison noted. "If Hayes can arrange extraction." "Negative," Hayes' voice came through the earpiece. "The mole's people have air support. Anything we put in the sky will be shot down." Maya looked down at the street, 22 floors below. The black SUVs were still there, their occupants maintaining a perimeter. "We're trapped." "Not necessarily," Morrison said, studying the building's architecture. "This building connects to the adjacent office tower through a sky bridge on the 18th floor. If we can get there..." "That's still 4 floors down, and they're searching every level," Maya pointed out. Morrison's earpiece crackled with Hayes' urgent voice. "I've got visual on the mole. You're not going to believe this." "Who is it?" Morrison demanded. "Defense Secretary Castellanos. He's in the building, personally overseeing the operation." Maya felt a chill. The Defense Secretary is here. Why would he expose himself like this? "Because he's desperate," Morrison realized. "If Maya reveals that intelligence, it won't just expose the terrorist weapon sites, it'll expose his connection to them. He's risking everything to stop her." Hayes continued. "Castellanos is on the 19th floor with a strike team. They're preparing to breach the roof access." Maya looked at Morrison with growing determination. "Then we don't run. We finish this." "Maya, that's suicide." "No, it's justice." Maya pulled out her phone. "Sadu Hayes, can you patch me through to the CNN studio?" "What are you doing?" "Going live right now, from the roof of their building." Hayes understood immediately. "Brilliant. If you're broadcasting, Castellanos can't kill you without doing it on live television." Maya activated her phone's camera and began streaming to social media, while Hayes worked to patch the feed through to CNN's emergency broadcast system. Within seconds, Maya's face appeared on screens across the country. "And my name is Maya Rodriguez," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "4 years ago, my sister Sofia Rodriguez was murdered by our own government to cover up a conspiracy involving terrorist weapons and a traitor in the highest levels of our military." The roof access door exploded open behind them. Defense Secretary Robert Castellanos emerged with his strike team, their weapons trained on Maya and Morrison. But Maya kept filming, her phone broadcasting live to millions of viewers. "Secretary Castellanos," Maya said, turning the camera toward him. "Perfect timing. Would you like to explain to the American people why you're pointing guns at a Walmart cashier?" Castellanos' face was a mask of controlled fury. "Turn off that camera, now." "I don't think so," Maya replied. "You see, my sister encoded intelligence about terrorist weapon sites into this tattoo." She rolled up her sleeve, showing the intricate design to the camera. "Intelligence that Secretary Castellanos has been selling to the same terrorists." "You have no proof of that," Castellanos snarled, but Maya could see the desperation in his eyes. Actually, I do. Maya had realized something crucial in that moment of adrenaline and clarity. Sofia didn't just give me a tattoo. She gave me access codes, hidden in plain sight. Morrison understood immediately. The books, the necklace, the photo album. My sister was brilliant, Maya continued, still filming. She didn't just encode locations in my tattoo. She hid the access codes in gifts she gave me. A book with certain pages marked, a necklace with specific bead patterns, photos arranged in precise sequences. Castellanos stepped forward, his weapon raised. I don't care how many people are watching. You're not leaving this roof alive. Secretary Castellanos, Hayes, voice echoed from speakers throughout the building. This is Colonel Elizabeth Hayes. You are surrounded by federal agents. Surrender immediately. Hayes is bluffing, Castellanos told his men. Take them down. But as his team moved forward, the roof erupted in chaos. FBI agents rappelled from helicopters, while others burst through multiple access points. The strike team found themselves outgunned and surrounded. In the confusion, Morrison tackled Castellanos, wrestling his weapon away. Maya kept filming as the defense secretary was forced to his knees, his conspiracy crumbling in real time on live television. The weapon sites, Maya announced to the camera, are located at coordinates encoded in this tattoo. The access codes are hidden in personal items my sister gave me. By tomorrow, every terrorist cell using these facilities will be neutralized. Hayes appeared on the roof, coordinating the arrests. Maya, we need those access codes immediately. Intelligence teams are standing by to raid the facilities. Maya nodded, finally lowering her phone. The broadcast had accomplished its purpose. Castellanos was exposed, the conspiracy was public, and the terrorist weapons would be secured before they could be used. Sofia would be proud, Morrison said, putting a protective arm around Maya's shoulders. She saved thousands of lives, Hayes added. And so did you. As the FBI led Castellanos away in handcuffs, Maya looked down at her tattoo one final time. What had started as a simple memorial to her sister had become the key to preventing mass casualties and exposing a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government. The hunt was over. The truth was revealed. And Sofia Rodriguez's sacrifice had finally been vindicated. 3 months later, Maya stood before a congressional committee, testifying about her sister's heroism and the conspiracy that had tried to bury the truth. The terrorist weapon sites had been raided successfully, preventing attacks that could have killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Maya was no longer a Walmart cashier. She'd been offered positions with multiple intelligence agencies, book deals, movie rights, and speaking engagements. But she'd chosen something simpler, returning to college, studying criminal justice, with plans to join the FBI and continue Sofia's work, protecting innocent lives. The tattoo remained on her arm, no longer a secret, but a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and the power of truth to overcome even the darkest conspiracies. Sofia Rodriguez had died a hero, and now the world knew it. Maya had started as just a Walmart cashier, but when a retired general spotted her classified tattoo, everything changed. She'd uncovered a conspiracy, exposed a traitor, prevented terrorist attacks, and ensured her sister's sacrifice would never be forgotten. Sometimes the most ordinary people carry the most extraordinary secrets, and sometimes those secrets can change the world.